As polls start to close around the country, we can officially mark the end of the 2010 election season. What do Democrats do now that they've been blindsided by a likely electoral defeat funded by hundreds of millions of dollars in special interest money? Money brought into the game by the Supreme Court's Citizens United decision. Looking forward, what will a significant Republican gain in Congress mean for progressives who are still trying to end the Bush tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires, and to make sure that Social Security isn't sold out to Wall Street? Joining me from Vermont to talk about these issues and how Democrats move forward after today is Jim Dean, chair of Democracy for America, democracyforamerica.com. Jim, welcome.
Tom, thanks for having me on. How are you?
I am great, but I'll get better. I hope you're well too, Jim.
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Tell me your thoughts on the, in all probability, newly configured House and where the Democrats are going forward. For example, we're already hearing I think it was Menendez yesterday or the day before was talking about, well, yeah, maybe we can extend the tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. Are the Democrats going to start caving in, or are they going to immediately come out of the box with a spine?
Well, you know, if they really want to see themselves get reelected in 2012, if Obama wants to get reelected in 2012, I mean, if he really wants to do it, they're going to come out of the gate with a spine, and they're going to come out of the gate fighting. And there's some great opportunities out there, Tom. Certainly forcing the Republicans to vote against a disclosure bill on some of these corporate contributions and putting them in the public eye on the side of these big business folks and big corporatists. I think that would put them in a very uncomfortable position, and I think we have a chance to get a disclosure bill passed on this thing, which would be a step towards campaign finance reform. Social Security, another thing that the Democrats have traditionally fought for. There's no reason to cave in on that, particularly seems that the last privatization plan would have put this country in an additional $2.5 trillion in deficit. We could fight for that. What the hell's the matter with that? And certainly there are lots and loads of other issues that we can go to the mat on, and I think we've got to come out fighting. Elections are a means to an end. You know, this is really about getting better health care for Americans, preserving Social Security, getting better financial regulation reform, campaign finance reform. There's no reason we should give up on that agenda just because a lot of right-wing nuts happen to get elected during the midterm elections.
But Jim Dean, if
that happens.
If that happens, yeah. What you're characterizing, Jim, though, is a Democratic Party with a spine, and I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that. You know, for example, you mentioned the Disclose Act. The Disclose Act was actually passed by the House, went to the Senate. This is a law that would have said, okay, Citizens United said that Osama bin Laden can start a corporation in New Jersey and launder his money through it, and that corporation can pick 2 or 3 members of Congress and simply buy their seats, basically, with millions of dollars in campaign advertising, and bin Laden can have his very own congressman or woman. And so the Democrats said, okay, if that's going to happen, odds of bin Laden are fairly small, but BP, for example, seems to actually be in this business of doing this, among others.
Sure.
If that's going to happen, if that's how it's going to happen, at least let's make the process transparent. You know, the equivalent of putting NASCAR patches on these members of Congress. The Republicans blocked that in the Senate, and the Democrats, you know, didn't say. I mean, they just backed right down, and I don't think it even made the 24-hour news cycle.
Well, here's a couple of things on this. One, if the Democrats want to survive, they're going to have to stand up for what they believe in. And I think most Democratic senators believe in actually a better disclosure bill, a more stringent one than the one that was actually being voted on the Senate. There's no reason we can't go back to this again and do it again. There's no reason that we can't put forth, again, a resolution or legislation to preserve Social Security. And there's no reason we can't do a lot of other stuff. The point is this: you're not going to get anything done unless you try. And that's what they've got to do in this thing. They can't sit there and try to compromise with a group of people that won't compromise. And more importantly, they need to force the Republicans to stand clear on whether they're really going to side with the big business interests. I think the Republicans will be a little bit more uncomfortable than that, with that than people might imagine. Let's not forget that the one group of people that poll lower than members of Congress in these polls are corporate chief executive officers. So I think we ought to go to the mat on this.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a good plan, Jim. The question is, I guess, whether the Democrats are going to, what message are they going to take away from this election? I mean, midterm elections, you always lose votes, but this one seems a little more radical than most. But Howard Ford Jr. has already come out and said, well, we should extend the tax cuts on millionaires and billionaires. You've got Democrats who are already coming out and saying, yeah, let's roll over, let's compromise. And you've got a lot of talking head commentators, particularly on the right, who are saying, see, this proves America is a center-right nation. Seems to me what it proves is if you come in with $260 billion worth of corporate cash, half of it or a chunk of it from overseas, that you can wipe out political candidates. But how do we gain, how do we recover the meme here and take it away from the corporate media and the Republicans that are going to try and convince everybody that the outcome of this election proves that America wants to go harder to the right?
All right. Well, first of all, we're going to have a couple of opportunities here. Number one, it's not clear to me exactly how. First of all, it's not clear to me that we're going to lose the House. And even if we were to lose the House, it's not clear to me that it wouldn't be because a lot of these triangulating Democrats lost their races. People like Blanche Lincoln, for example, who looks to be in great trouble, is exactly the type of Democrat that would side with extending the tax cuts. She's probably going to be out of office after this. So we'll be able to, there'll be a story there that'll show very clearly that if we don't stand up for our values, we're going to get thrown out. The second thing that's going to happen, Tom, and this is something that Democracy for America, I can guarantee you, is going to be very involved with, is that there are Democrats who want to extend the tax cuts, if there are Democrats that really want to punt on campaign finance reform, and if there are Democrats that aren't willing to stand up, we're going to be there to help candidates who are willing to primary them in 2012, and we're not going to care whether it means a Republican gets that seat or not, because we're either going to work for a Democrat or, we're just going to, give up on that seat. I mean, there's no reason to have somebody in there who's actually a Republican just because they're called a Democrat. So there are going to be plenty of opportunities to primary candidates and primary incumbents who aren't going to stand up for what they believe in and aren't going to stand up for our values. And I believe that a lot of those folks are going to be able to win, particularly after 2 years of, again, an opposition or a Republican Party as leadership that's really going to bring this country nowhere.
Very well said. Thank you again, Jim Dean, Democracy for America, democracyforamerica.com. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks a lot, Tom.